Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan K bringing us in, and we watched this crazy thing called Mad God, and Aaron's going to give us an introduction about it.
There was a time where there was a prince and a gun. A corroded diving bell descends amidst a ruined city, and an assassin emerges from it to explore a labyrinth of bizarre landscapes inhabited by freakish denizens.
We have our three wonderful, awesome friends with us tonight to help explain this crazy movie, and two wonderful beers we got from Tabor Brewing and from Wayfinder. We'll talk about those in a minute, but yeah, who's here tonight?
Joining them, this is Aaron. This is your MSK 3000 snark expert.
Yeah, because we did MST3K this whole time.
Yeah, you missed a T, dude.
Oh, yeah, there's a T in there. Sorry.
MST3K, yeah.
If anything, you're a novice.
MSTK, LGBTQ, I put T in everything.
You put tea in everything? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to drink coffee, but this is Blake. You're a stop motion expert.
And this is Mad Brian R. coming to you talking about stop action animation.
Yeah, there you go.
Beep, 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 beep.
I have one of those, but I'm not going to use it.
I had to really fight the urge to use the
I was
phone.
like, I could get it out. But yeah, we're not going to do that. Anyway, so thanks for hanging out, everybody. This is
that was the episode. Bye, guys.
Yeah, seriously. Right. So we watched this movie called Mad God that was put out by a gentleman. It took him 30 years to make, literally.
1987 to
Phil Trippett.
2020.
We did a little research on it, and he had film students and animation students come and work on it in pieces, and he had put this out
like on Saturdays.
And that's why it took him 30 years, because this is like an hour and a half long crazy diatribe of visual strangeness. That's all I'm going to say. And Blake's probably going to throw something at me. I'm going to say it one more time. Who says Clay can't be scary?
Well, now it's fine because we're on the podcast. You were just saying a lot during the movie.
I was like, that's some scary visuals. I'm like,
it's terrifying. But the reason, if you don't know anything about stop motion animation, it takes a long time to make a single shot happen.
Yeah, labor intensive.
It's very labor
you have to make sure there's continuity. You take a single picture, move it slightly, single picture, move it slightly, and that just takes so much time. Not to mention building the sets. Everything was practical, I think, right?
Yeah. So this was basically broken down into three parts. There's the assassin who goes down from above, who is sent by an actual human, an actual actor. So the thing is they interlace.
I believe that was Alex Cox.
Yes.
The director of Sid and Nancy.
What?
Yeah.
Among other things.
Tight.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun and interesting. So there's
There were probably only maybe 2 or 3
human actors
in the film.
Yeah.
Everything else is stop motion, or there was a lot of fire and explosion
some visual
scenes.
effects digitally laid over.
Yeah.
That one scene where oil on water or whatever with the close up.
So broken into 3 parts. The assassin shows up and they show him kind of making his way, and then he gets captured. So that's the end of the first part. And the second part is the surgeon and doing their thing and really gross. And there's a lot
hated
of
that part.
flashbacky scenery stuff that kind of tells a little of the story. So this collection of animated pieces really tells a story, but you have to kind of extrapolate the story because
loose
it's not
narrative.
There's no plot.
It's a loose narrative.
Yeah, it's a tone poem, not really a narrative film.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a better way to say it.
And so the human then at the end they kind of do a little bit with him, but then it's more of a visualization of what was inside of these people or these things that he sends down to try and explode and blow up.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. If he is a person or the possible mad god that the title suggests, what are those? Other poo people? Just a different sort of invention?
And just to be forewarned, this is animation, but this is not kid appropriate.
It is real gross. Not for language, it's all visual.
I maybe teenager appropriate, somebody 15 and older maybe.
If they're going through some stuff, listening to a lot of Tool,
Yeah. So if you've seen
their math or stepdad.
if you've seen Sober, the video for the song Sober by Tool off Anima, this is very much like that, Brothers Quay style, very creepy, weird,
grotesque.
Very grotesque.
Yeah, it reminded me of I remember this will date myself, but 9 Inch Nails, I got an album as a teenager, and it was one of the first times I saw something grotesque intentionally done as art.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, there's a certain aesthetic. Some people are more comfortable with the grotesque as others, and not cute grotesque like gargoyles on churches. This is legit.
This is surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this film, the craft of making it was amazing.
Yes, beautiful.
Agreed.
Visually stunning.
Yeah.
But very gross. And maybe that's the departure point for this discussion tonight. It was not an enjoyable film to watch. I don't
No,
think
it
any
was
of
challenging.
us enjoyed it.
Right.
It was really an art piece and one man's vision, one man's hobby. 30 years to bring this to screen to show what he could do visually.
Yeah. I could easily see this as a series of installations on screens throughout for a week at a museum.
Yeah.
Just from
Yeah.
Sunday to the following Sunday. If you don't come here within that week, you don't get to see it. Linear path to follow this weird journey that there is kind of a story.
Yeah.
It's like watching a Mad Max movie where the setting tells some of the story. It just also introduces as many questions.
There's
so we're thinking, all right, post-apocalypse, but what are these things with like the big teeth and the boobs on their butt?
There's
What-
not a
what
lot
is
of
happening?
continuity between there. You don't know why or what, and I don't think you're supposed to. You're just supposed to enjoy the.
But we sure
visuals and the
tried. We
craft.
sure tried to guess it.
We did try.
It's open to personal interpretation and
Yeah.
self-reflection, like art. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely an art film.
Yes.
I won't watch it again, but I'm certainly glad I watched it
Yeah,
for that reason.
It was intriguing, but not enjoyable for sure.
And it was like some of the visual effects were really interesting, but it almost did like I don't want to say it felt like a portfolio of different visual effects that Phil Tippett put together, but there were some really cool visual things he did. But yeah, it was kind of gross, and I don't want to watch it again. It's like one of like 2 or 3 movies. It's like okay, I'm glad I saw it, but
Not
I don't
again,
need-
yeah.
I saw it.
It's a one and
I don't
done.
need to spend that part of my life again.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a one and done thing. I really think that, and I was pointing out, like, because I was reading the trivia as we started watching it, I was like, hey, in this first set of scenes, in the first like 5 minutes, you can see some of the material. And he worked on RoboCop. He worked on a bunch of different films.
Didn't he work on the first Jurassic Park you mentioned?
Yes.
That's
So there
cool.
are things. You'll see the robot from, I want to say, the original TV series.
The Lost in
from
Space?
Lost in Space. The original robot was like one of the clay figures.
I
and
could
it
see
was like-
that. They had a lot of those clay figures had a 70s, 80s kind of vibe, as if he's been collecting over the years
Yeah.
and doing this piecemeal, like you said, over 30 years.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it totally looks like these are things he found.
Yeah.
Like these are not things he built.
This
Some of it he
this
probably
is a
built, but
collection of
maybe-
flea market visits and going, this is just right.
because the poo people. So there's these things that are being shocked, and they collect the discharge. Let's just put it like that, and turn them into people. Are these sentient
they
beings?
animate them. They quicken them.
animated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just basically like felt and hair and mud.
It's like a gross Fantasia.
It is, and they have no facial. I mean, it's just basically like Stickman. If you ever seen
like
just
those
a basic
little wooden
Stickman.
art models where
Yeah.
you
That's
Actually,
really what it was,
that's a
yeah.
really good description.
right.
And they are throughout the whole film. They are the ones that are the workers. And Aaron kept commenting about is this a commentary on capitalism? And
yeah.
I think Blake was true in saying yes, because they blew it up in the end, sort of.
Yeah,
Sort of.
And the main population, the poo people, they have no value.
No value at all.
No value. They're the workers.
They brought nothing to the table other than getting squished.
Yeah, they were
midway.
expendable, and like if any machinery, had any, slightest deviation to avoid expending a poo person, like no, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
That poo person was done.
That's the most efficient path.
Yeah, it was interesting because the assassin, just before he got captured, and we're going to a little plot spoil here because you're probably not going to watch this. I mean, maybe not.
Honestly, calling him an assassin might not even be right, but
Yeah.
that's the first part that popped in my head. And then
Well, that's how they advertise it.
There is no
Yeah,
plot
okay,
to
okay.
spoil, Dan.
I know. There's no plot.
that's true. Yeah,
There's
you
no
can't
plot.
really.
Yeah,
You're watching this for the visuals.
Let's not talk about the cuckoo clock then. Man.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
the gnome
very,
pets. The gnome pets were my favorite part.
There was a lot of gnome references, and we have friends who like gnomes a lot, and
Because they're wrong. They
because
don't
they're
know any
wrong,
better.
They don't know any better. But yeah, we were pointing those out quite a lot, and it was quite funny because we're like, oh, we got to get him to watch this, but he'd probably hate us if he did.
I mean, Steve might be into it. I don't know when he'll get a chance to watch with the family. But
No, definitely not kid
it'd be a
appropriate.
solo project.
Watch it on your lunch break.
Yeah, that's work appropriate.
Right. Yeah, this is the last
But
movie
anyway,
I bring into the office.
this is not a film to watch by yourself in a dark room.
No.
Well, I mean, unless you're on acid.
That's the worst reason to do it. You need someone to pull you out of it, man.
I think it would spiral into depression.
Brian, what minimum number of people could safely watch this together?
3.
Yeah, I think 3. I think Aaron's right.
Because you would just start commenting to each other about how crazy it is and what
It certainly helped.
We did. We literally talked the whole
will say,
time. We're like, what? Oh, look at that over there. Blah blah blah.
And, as a quick point on that, like I'm a film, I like to immerse in a movie. Usually,
Same.
I like to not talk. I get annoyed if I'm in a theater and somebody's talking and be like, "Come on, guys, you do that at home." Like just show some respect for the movie while you're in a theater. This movie, however,
you can't.
you can't because like it is a world of shit, and like if you immerse yourself into that completely, it would just be a deeply unpleasant experience. Like
There is virtually no dialogue, and the dialogue there is unintelligible.
yes,
Like baby.
Baby
So,
speak.
so it's all sound design and music.
Yeah.
And visuals.
all
So
about the
it
visuals.
really is. I mean, it really is a visual poem. It's an hour and 20 minutes of
so
an experience,
A
of an
collection.
art experience.
A collection of
Emotions.
visuals. Yes.
So, kind of having set this up as like a tone poem and like an unpleasant, like or interesting but unpleasant visual experience, the question I had while we were watching it was like, what space does like uncomfortable or unpleasant art have? You know, because not all art should be meant to make you feel good, and not all art is meant to like spark joy. What space is there for art to make you uncomfortable?
Well, yeah,
Everyone's brains work differently. I've had days at a time where I just all I want to watch is like dark, depressing, post-apocalyptic stuff. Shortly after the pandemic happened, and we had like a whole the fire smoke filling the city. Mm-hmm. My housemates and I were hiding out in the basement, and they were asking, "What do you want to watch?" I said, "Oh, Snowpiercer." It's like grim, depressing, horrible another capitalist commentary movie. And they said, "Yeah, we aren't really in the mood for that."
100%.
Oh,
100%. I thought you were going to say Powerpuff Girls. Like I want to watch Powerpuff Girls. Like,
no, man. For my comfort cartoons, Dexter's Lab or Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Dexter's Lab I could see.
But yeah, I was just craving dark, dystopian something or other. There's a space for it. It's just
I don't know. So
the four of us usually go for lighter, more fun,
Yeah,
maybe
so-
weird but fun stuff.
So, Brian, when you were in school, was there a lot of these kind of projects going on? Did you see much of this kind of like not being made for pleasure type things? Because in film school, everybody's all over the map.
Oh yeah, in film school there was a lot of personal trauma being worked out on film.
Yes.
therapy.
And I will say I did make a stop animation film myself.
I want to see it.
Oh, nice.
I want to see it.
I don't know if it exists anymore.
Then we'll just make it ourselves.
But
listeners, get more
All right.
listeners. We'll start a Patreon.
I will toot my own horn. I lived in a high-rise apartment building, and I did it over the course of one night so that in the background of my stop animation, the sun rose.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Wow.
But
Nice.
I will also say I only had a single figure,
That helps.
which was much easier to animate, but it did take me 12 hours to animate this.
Wow.
Like 20 seconds worth of film?
It was 3 minutes.
Oh, 3 minutes?
But I
Wow.
went fast. I
I
mean,
was going to say, you're like,
I-
move, click, move,
I
click,
booked.
move, click,
Yeah.
move,
But
click.
like
Yeah.
one
'Cause-
figure versus like if you've got a scene with several that you have to try and figure out. Like,
And you're moving something and you're moving the camera and you have to
And if
keep
there's
the
stuff in
camera
the
focus at the
Yeah,
right distance.
So
and
the
all that
camera was
shit.
locked off, so it was just
Yeah.
the figure moving with the
Yeah.
with the sky changing behind it.
That's
basically.
very
So the thing is like if you've never, I mean, some of the older crowd, they would know some of the really nice stop motion animation, Harry,
Ray Harryhausen for one.
Harryhausen, yeah.
The Rankin Bass,
Yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah,
and
Frosty
the
the
stuff you
Snowman.
saw on
Yeah.
TV
Heat
as a
Miser,
kid,
Frost
yeah.
Miser.
I love that
That's all
stuff.
stop
That's
motion
fun.
animation. That's not animated. That's stop motion. So it's you have a figure,
Yeah,
you're moving it, you take a picture, you move it, take a picture. This interlaced a lot of the different. I use that word again. It overlaid a lot of different aspects of. I don't know if it was in like they had a specific set, and then later on they did the post production and added sort of the more fluid visuals because there was a lot of really interesting scenes that mixed. And we asked ourselves, we said it out loud. We were watching this. How do they do that? That had to have been done later post production because it's like you're not going to do stop motion and have live flame going at the same time.
or
that
fabric
doesn't
tattering
work.
in the wind. Yeah.
Exactly. Or the dude floating.
Yeah, it
With
had to be
fabric
a
floating. It's like-
composite shot where they took two different images and then married them together.
Yeah, and they did a really good job. I didn't see any glitchy, weird.
Yeah, there were no artifacts of that process.
It was pretty seamless. So from an artistic standpoint, AA plus. Like they did
From a fan standpoint, savage disappointment. No Wallace or Gromit.
no Wallace or
I'm
Gromit.
heartbroken.
Yeah, it was a challenging film. It was
It was not meant to be
You got
fun.
to enjoy art.
Yeah.
Extremely well executed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd recommend for fans of animation, at least.
Yeah.
At least part of it. Maybe not the entire thing. Maybe not the middle part, but just
there's definitely some gore. It's not just horror. It's not scary stuff. There is gore. I'm like they're like ripping things
like,
apart.
there's no
and
language. It's all
squishing things.
visual.
Well,
Yeah.
we were talking like Quentin Tarantino, BioShock. There were a number of different like sort of callback or similar
Visualizations.
Right. I mean, yeah, some gross stuff.
And they do actually drop things onto the lens,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
which is
I
interesting.
love that. I love that trope.
There's some splattering.
So it's like break the fourth wall a little bit,
Right.
which is cool. I don't know. But we also had a couple of beers with this film.
Yes, we did.
And I purposely sought out some interesting cans and a couple of beers that I thought the styles would either completely not compete with it or go with it and make you like, oh yeah, I'm interested in this. And it's like, oh, cool visuals. I didn't know there wasn't any dialogue. So I took a chance. And I think both beers went okay.
I honestly, before we get into them, if you decide to watch this and you don't drink anything, you might be fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough to pair anything with it. But if you decide to drink something,
A sour.
sign says cut to Dan. There's no camera in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever beer style you don't like, that's the one to drink with this film.
Because you're gonna be mad. You're gonna be mad. I was telling the guys, I was like, well, I picked a couple of really like safe beers, and I'm like, oh, we should have just drank something that's gonna piss us off because this film it makes you kind of just question.
We should
things,
drink
like,
that skunked
mad.
beer.
Yeah, you're like
Stout in the summertime.
Kind of shitty beer.
really
is
weird
what
stuff.
goes well.
Right. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. And so
You're welcome.
Moving to beer. We've been talking about this film called Mad God, and we're now which is stop motion animation, really interesting, about an hour 20 minutes. Phil Trippett. Now we're gonna talk about the two beers that we had. The first one is from Wayfinder, and those here in the Portland metro area can find Wayfinder at most common grocery stores. Freddy's, New Seasons, wherever. We had the Hell lager beer. And I picked this one out because of the label, and I knew that I've had this beer a number of times, both on draft and at the location at Wayfinder itself.
Wayfinder makes a good beer.
And in cans. And the label itself has like a skull with a wing and a sword, and surprisingly enough, there's all of these visuals that are on the label of this can were in this film.
Including the Surgeon General warning about pregnant women. It was weird.
Yeah, I know. Just don't be an assassin that gets torn apart and with a surgeon and finds this infant, weird, bizarre.
Yeah.
We don't know what it was, but it was crying like a baby.
Yeah, I hated that part. Let's talk about the beer so I can forget about it.
Unlike the beer.
I hated all the parts, including like the doll that was touching itself, and then
Yeah.
that squiggly
Oh, I
thing.
forgot about that.
And
And
except for the
there's-
gnome pets. The
And there
gnome
was
pets were
the
right.
gnome
Gnome
pets,
pets were
and
cool.
then there was the one scene that Brian had to show, and we couldn't stop watching. So these two
Yeah.
things get electrocuted, and one gets a little aroused in a way that's inappropriate for the podcast.
Real quick, Electrophallus, good band name.
Yes, there you go. So Hell as an interesting beer. So this is a Helles, and it's like 4.9% ABV and 20 IBU. It's like really crisp and light. It has a lot of effervescence, so it kind of dances on the tongue. It has some floral and normal hop aromas, and it's a really, really nice Helles that is light and is crushable in some ways, but it still has enough, not necessarily real bitterness, but it has
Little
enough
kick.
attention, and it will linger. It lingers. It doesn't just hit and drop.
Like a Cranberry song.
Correct.
Do you have to let it linger?
Do you have to?
This was a pleasant beer, though. Like it was a pleasant beer. I don't think I liked the beer. I don't think it matched
Not
the
the
visual of the
film at all.
movie.
Yeah.
Like it seemed too enjoyable.
This is a Ryan Reynolds vehicle beer. This is something you watch when Ryan Reynolds is just cracking wise and
Or
running around.
sci-fi that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah. Fifth Element. I can see this in the Fifth Element.
Yeah.
What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know.
The picture on the can really matched the film.
Yes, that's why I got it. I was like, having seen the previews, I was like, oh yeah, skulls and wings and swords and kind of like D&D kind of horror stuff.
Yeah.
Totally matched it, but the beer itself.
yeah.
And I would also very much agree. It was non-distracting. It was a nice beer. And it's like, what are we watching? Because we just were distracted by the film more than anything.
Yeah.
Good beer, not necessarily good for the film. And I don't
second
know if anyone is actually going to give a thumbs up on the film, so we can go ahead and move on to the second beer, which was from Mt. Tabor Brewing, which has locations both in Portland and in Vancouver. They distribute in both Vancouver and Portland. The location I bought these beers at was the Hollywood, I don't know, is it liquor store? I think it's called liquor store.
I think it's
I've
Hollywood.
been there
Hollywood
3
liquor.
times, man. I don't know.
Yeah, we were running around and we're like, hey, we're going to stop and grab some beers. And so we went back and I literally just picked out the cans based on the label. And so this from Mt. Tabor Brewing is called Tabor Ador Doppelbock, and it's got like 7.3%, 26 IBU. It's just really rich and has a solid body, solid mouthfeel, and it has a kind of a spoof of the Terminator holding a 4-pack of the beer.
Dun, dun,
can,
dun, dun,
with
dun.
a picture of himself. So it's like they did the label first and then they added the can. It's
dun,
like
dun, dun.
it's amazing. I was like, oh, it's got Arnold on it, and this was supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic thing, which it was, which reminded me very much of like the scene in the Terminator where you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the
Where
saints
it
rolling
says
over
Terminators
the
are
skull.
crushing the skulls.
Yeah,
He says famously, "I'll be double buck."
I'll be double buck.
God,
Yes.
get up, go, Lee.
You're
I'm
fired.
so jealous. I didn't think of that first.
Yeah. So
Well, I was commenting with Brian. It sort of fits since the first Terminator, especially. It had noticeable stop motion effects before James Cameron really mastered the craft.
Yeah.
Like partway through when he's like shot and peeling his skin off and repairing himself. It's really kind of. It's like it looks like that Land Before Time. The dinosaur claymation stop motion movie
yeah.
or show. I'm blanking on the show now. Dang it. But yeah, like a very choppy, blocky sort of move.
Yeah. And that's what the first Terminator sort of felt like. And a lot of the scenes were really fluid, but
Yeah,
it
this
had
one
that
looked
vibe.
great. Yeah. Later scenes had a choppier look, but a lot of them is really it's phenomenal.
It was
stop
very
motion.
smooth animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smooth up.
But anyway, if you want to talk about the beer, sorry, that was another reference for why.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this
So
is
this beer went better
Yes.
as far
Yeah.
as I was concerned.
both of these.
I'd agree with that.
Both of these are lagers. One is a very light lager, and one is a very dark and heavier lager.
Yeah.
So
in the darkness of the second one,
Yeah.
the Mount Tabor lager.
you're talking
went
like
better.
basically 5% to over 7%. So
Yep.
you have a little bit more kick. The IBUs on this one aren't necessarily. It's like a dry leafy hop or like traditional German. Most German beers have a dry leafy approach to them or earthen. You get that little bit of like if you put dirt in your mouth, you get that little weird acid, iron. Just like
When are you
full
putting
body.
dirt in your mouth?
As a
When
kid,
aren't
I'm like,
you?
When aren't you? You know,
Why do you think I
I
never get sick?
Yeah, I know. I don't have
Whenever you would
exposure.
watch this movie,
Yes, you're gonna want to eat.
No,
dirt.
Brian, that's putting dirt in your eye.
you're visually putting dirt in your mouth.
I don't mean to be judgmental. Anybody that wants to put dirt anywhere is totally fine.
You,
It's a
Aaron,
per- a
gross.
pers-
Dirt's not food.
It's
Don't
a
be
personal
hater.
choice.
Don't be a hater.
Do what you will with dirt. We're all adults.
Yeah, so it's got that kind of earthy, full body like approach to it. It's not weird, hoppy,
Right.
super sharp. It's very rounded and grounded, I guess would be my best approach to talking about this beer, which went fairly well with this non-grounded film. That was crazy.
It's got there's like a little bit more like robust kind of
Yes.
flavor to it,
Solid
and it
body.
does match the movie better. Which is not to say that it's a shitty beer by any means or an unpleasant beer. It's a good beer.
It went well with the crazy visuals. That's all I'm going to say. Is like the heaviness of
Yeah,
the film
yeah.
and the heaviness of
Yes.
the beer is matched up a little bit.
Good way to say that. Good
Yeah.
way to
So
say
if you are going to watch this and you're going to seek out something again, as mentioned earlier, find something that is going to be a little heavier. We mentioned maybe stout, but stouts may even not necessarily be able to hold up to this.
I would personally, I would get some Everclear and drop some hops and a tab of acid.
Because we were talking about like some of the scenes were like, oh, they lifted that from 2001: A Space Odyssey because like it's the like weird
The
lava
obelisks,
lampy
the
and
end.
there's
Could I
Yeah.
find like a dark, hairy porter that has menthol tones?
that could probably, yeah. I mean, you can get something that's going to sit on the tongue and just like coat it and like be there and be like, oh, I'm going to
Just melt some asphalt and then chug it down.
Vaguely
Yeah.
medicinal.
Just be gross.
Yeah, totally.
Gross and heavy.
But gross in a pleasant way.
Out of these two beers, I think I think we would all agree the second one went better. And
Tabor
I don't
Agreed.
know, I don't know if we're actually going to suggest anyone actually watch this unless you're really into art films and animation and like stop motion animation.
I have a couple of friends who I think would enjoy it.
Yeah, the craft of the film was outstanding.
Yes.
And it was visually interesting for 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes, yeah.
That's visual interest.
Not in a row, but like 20 minutes overall.
Visual interest.
It was a long film to watch.
It was like a big music video.
Some people really do like the grotesque and find comfort in the grotesque, and then they will appreciate this movie also.
Yeah.
But if you want something that's like satisfying and feels happy at the end, like this is not the movie.
This is not for you.
But you know what you could do?
Hydrate?
Well, that's later. You have to do your end credit stuff. God, it's like Dan's first time. No, like Pink Floyd's The Wall and The Wizard of Oz, find a Tool album that syncs up with this movie.
Yeah.
Like where the album plays all the way and ends as the credits end.
Well, the
Because
music
there's not a lot of music.
That's
the music is
possible.
good though. The music that they do have is like creepy and otherworldly. And
Ethereal.
reminding- Yeah.
But it might be fun to see.
Yeah.
Or even better, like a Britney
the-
Spears album that fits.
The music was better for the first half hour.
Yeah.
True.
I would also say that.
Yeah.
The score was fantastic for the first half hour. Like,
And again, broken into 3 different parts and probably done in different decades and done over time. And, as Brian mentioned, or you mentioned, that watching the credits, he didn't edit this.
Yeah, that was a Brian.
There was somebody else that edited it, and which is not surprising because it's like if you're just an animator, that's not necessarily, as you had mentioned, not your
strong
wheelhouse.
suit.
It's not your
Yeah.
strong suit.
Yeah.
You're going to rely on somebody to help kind of congeal it and try to tell a little bit of a story. And this falls short. There is a story there, but there's
a narrative.
There's a narrative. You just really have to extrapolate really hard.
Yeah.
Again, I think if you're in animation and you really want to see something that's fun and different and challenging and not pleasant, to be challenged by the horror of it.
Yeah.
Again, who says clay can't be scary?
Aaron said that like all the time. I didn't want to tell you.
I'm saying it again.
No, I
because
said I'm.
that's my phrase, man. That's my phrase.
Pop quiz, Aaron. How many Kickstarter backers were there?
all right,
There were 4,000.
Dang, he got it.
And we sat through those credits to look at the names of all those Kickstarter.
What was one?
backers.
Megazord or whatever?
Mega. Oh shit! What was it? Mega domain. Mega
Mega-
plane.
Mega-
Mega something. It was a username.
Yeah,
And all
username.
after all these like first and last Christian names or whatever, it's like regular names, just Mega Dongle or whatever. Like, God, buddy.
It was not a dongle.
Just use your freaking names for
there,
comedy.
there were
Aaron.
several dongles on this film.
Yeah,
Yeah, true.
We I think enjoyed the post credit and the credit scene. Well, not post credit, but the credits a little bit more enjoyable than the film in some ways because we were just laughing
I
about
like
it.
I like the cuckoo clock.
Yeah, at the very end, there's a cuckoo clock with a big toucan that looks somewhat realistic a little bit. It's got feathers on it. It's
That
like,
was a monster. It wasn't a toucan.
It made no sense why they showed. Okay, time ran out.
Yeah.
because they showed time.
Cuckoo.
They
It
showed
felt like the end of a Tim and Eric bit where it's just like
right.
watch this horrible thing and then punchline. What did I just see?
So what kind of films would go well with these two beers?
Ooh.
that is actually really.
I
Good
mean,
question.
the easy answer is Terminator 2, T2 Judgment Day for the Tabor because
because it is about the Terminator. So the first
it's
one,
pretty heavy and dark. Linda Carter is just terrifying.
Mad
Yeah.
Max came up earlier in discussion too. What do you
Yes.
think?
I'd
That
watch
would-
Road Warrior.
That would be a Mad Max beer.
Yeah.
Hell goes with pretty much anything TV related because it's really light and it's short lived. You're going to pound it
Yeah.
really fast because it's a good cream.
Friends the movie?
Friends.
Yeah,
well,
Friends the movie. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Let's watch Friends.
Oh no, I'm sick all of a sudden. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I would drink this if I was watching Letterkenny or anything fun and interesting. Or
Yeah, yeah.
We were watching like Love, Death, and Robots and some other stuff before we started the episode, and we're just like, hey, we don't want to start drinking the beers quite yet because we only have 2, and it's like, yeah,
It's not a
Make it
crazy long movie.
no, it's an hour 20 minutes, but that's with credits. So
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
But it felt like 5.
it felt like
It did feel a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I think everyone is a maybe thumbs down-ish, maybe-ish on this film. Maybe.
Thumbs up with caveats.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's not bad.
It's very selective who you would recommend this to. Like, again,
yeah.
Yeah.
I know some people who would probably enjoy the tone and the animation and everything, but a lot of my friends, like I can tell you right now, both my parents would hate this.
Yeah. Well,
Oh God, I couldn't even imagine.
there you go.
Well, Dad's always asking me what to watch. I'm going through the Rolodex, like he'd hate this, he'd hate this. Mom like that, he'd hate this.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. So any thoughts, any last words on this and the beers before we go ahead and close this episode out? I mean, I want to say that both beers were good. They not, there's things you can enjoy this film with, but it's on streaming services. It was put out by Shudder originally. And again, it took them a really long time to make it. And it's very disjointed from that perspective. The visuals change dramatically. There's live human action juxtaposed against stop motion animation. And you're like, okay, how am I supposed to connect these without just like suspending all belief and be like, okay, so there's a story here.
It's appropriate Shudder content.
It is. It's just horror visual. So
Yeah, that's what Shudder provides. Good on Shudder.
Yeah, recommended for people who aren't depressed because of COVID, and for people who are maybe in film school, and for people who love the grotesque. A very select, specific audience.
People who love animation.
People who love
something
animation.
there for them.
And Gary Busey. He might like it.
he might.
He might.
You
I
never
love
know.
animation, guys. I love it.
Yes. All right. So if you don't hydrate,
I don't have a fun way to make this consider the movie. Imagine there's like a melting man saying this, dihydrate.
just please hydrate if you're going to drink anything. And as always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this are those of the hosts. And we really want to thank you for hanging out. And this was an interesting film. It was challenging, and the beers were good, but I don't know if they really helped it a whole lot. So, I'm just going to sign it out because we're just going to keep digressing on.
You keep
negativity.
digressing.
I help.
We all help each other. You help a lot,
What's that?
Aaron. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for helping. So this is Dan signing out. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
This is Aaron. Thank you for listening.
This is the melting poo man Blake saying blah, 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 blah.
This is Brian. Thank you very much.